Welcome to Weird Web Radio, an explorer's guide to hidden worlds of the paranormal and occult, reality-expanding experiences, and the downright weird and bizarre. With your host, Lonnie Scott.
Hey gang, welcome to Weird Web Radio. I'm your host, Lonnie Scott. In this episode, I'm talking to Elizabeth Saint. Elizabeth is on the TV show Ghosts of Sheperdstown and creates a lot of tools for Paranormal Lockdown. And if you're a fan of paranormal TV, then you know what both those shows are. If you're not, you're about to find out just how awesome Elizabeth is. This show was made possible because Elizabeth is so open and humble and kind with her fans. She responds to messages and she's willing to put herself out there just to help build the community in the paranormal world. That alone makes her pretty amazing to talk to. In this episode, you're going to hear a lot of cool stories from her own personal experience. We cover everything from experiencing the paranormal when you're young, but not doing much about it until you're older, and what it means to have these sensitive abilities while also being an electrical engineer and how you bring those skills together in the field. Now, Elizabeth and I also go into our bonus questions for my Patreon subscribers. You can go to patreon.com/weirdwebradio. It's only $5 a month, and you'll hear some pretty entertaining stories to go on top of this episode. So in the meantime, I want you to get to know Elizabeth through her own words. So go grab some popcorn, your favorite drink, kick back and relax. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the show. Elizabeth, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to get this chance to talk to you, and I'm sure that the people out there who know who you are looking forward to my unique twist on asking some questions, as well as those who don't know you. I hope that they find themselves hooked on all your various projects soon.
Yeah. That's all I can hope for, too.
Yeah. So I know you do a lot of traveling. Where are you in the world these days?
Right now I am, where am I? Honestly, I feel like I forget where I am all the time, but that's a good thing because it means that I'm busy. I know that I'm Central Time. I believe I'm in Missouri right now.
Oh, you're not too far away. Well, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for down there. I know you've got a lot of different things going on.
Yeah.
Before we get too far, I want to get you in the right frame of mind. So, right out of the gate, what's one thing that you believe to be true in the paranormal without any doubt or skepticism?
That's a fantastic question. Honestly, one thing that I believe to be true is that you can never be certain about anything. That is a deeply held belief that I have, that you can never be certain about anything. My views have changed so much over the past 10 years, 5 years, past week on certain things. Just because I find the more I travel, the more that I'm exposed to, in various situations, like there's always something that's surprising me. And I love that, honestly, about the paranormal.
Oh, I agree. There's plenty out there that can surprise you. And it's interesting that you bring up there's so much that's changed in your views in the last 10 and 5 years. So let's get more specific. What's something that maybe you held as a belief 5 or 10 years ago that you know that's changed and morphed over time to something else now?
I don't know if I could get very specific without taking a long time to think about it. I will tell you, like, I was raised Catholic. I, for a period of time, studied Buddhism. And then I started studying all sorts of and different types of religions and became very spiritual throughout the process because I found that over time, certain things adhered to my experiences and other things did not. And certain things made sense to what I initially believed and other things did not. So I eventually over time felt like I was becoming this mutt of things and beliefs. And then the paranormal adds a whole new twist and a whole new element on it on top of that. And I think it's hard because, like, our minds are capable of doing the craziest things. And at the same time, it's like I can't deny the fact that I just can't deny certain things that your personal experiences have on you. Like the paranormal is very subjective a lot of times. My experience will be completely different from yours. But at the same time, it's still, it's still constantly changing.
That's true. So how did you get started into paranormal investigation?
I started about, it might be like 7 years now. I've had experiences ever since I was a little girl. I honestly pretended like I didn't have them for a very long time. I tried to ignore it to the best of my ability, but I moved down to the Washington, D.C. area for an engineering job with the DoD. And at that time, I moved into this apartment in Northern Virginia. And I started having a lot of experiences there. And it wasn't completely abnormal at first. It was things that I was always used to. But then it started to escalate over the next couple months. So at first, I'd have these dreams about this one particular entity in my apartment. Then it started escalating to like waking up in the middle of the night from these dreams and seeing just standing in the doorway. And then it got to the point where it started getting really personal. And the one thing that kind of tipped me overboard was I was actually taking a shower. And I remember hearing these heavy footsteps coming into the bathroom. And immediately I thought in that moment that someone actually broke into my apartment. And it was just me and my dog at that time. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, like I hope my dog is okay. I know that I locked the front door. There's no way that somebody could have come into the apartment. And then whoever this person was, they started whistling this tune. So I hear the footsteps get closer and closer and closer to the shower, and the whistling's continuing, and then it just stops. And in that moment, I was ready to fight whatever it was that was in my house. And I could hear this person on the other side of the shower curtain. And you know when there's another presence in the room with you, like it's just something that you feel. And I remember in that moment thinking like, number one, I hope that I have some like latent supernatural abilities that I'm unaware of and they come out in this moment. And number two, like I do not care that I have to fight this person naked, but that's what I'm going to do if I have to. And I remember I counted like 3, 2, 1. I pulled back the curtain. Of course, nothing was there. And my dog comes scurrying around the corner, like so happy to see me. And in that moment, I was like, I cannot ignore this any longer. Like, I need to figure out what's happening to me. And I think it was hard for me up until that point because I am very logical. My background is in electrical engineering, and that's just a part of me. And then on the other side, I've had all of these unusual experiences in my life for as long as I can remember. So I decided to look online and see if I could find like a local paranormal group, if one existed. I had no idea up until that time if that was even a thing. But I found a paranormal group called Maryland Paranormal Research, and I loved it because everyone that was part of the group was either prior military or already worked for the government at that time. And I was like, these people are right up my alley because they can understand, my struggle with, the paranormal aspect of me and then the sensitive side of me as well.
That seems to be a common theme that you run into a lot. People trying to balance sensitive sort of skills, as you describe them, with technical tools and technology being part of your investigations. It's good that you found a group that kind of fit in. But with your experiences, you said it goes all the way back to when you're a girl, and you mentioned dreams. What is it? Because we've all seen you on your shows doing investigations, and you obviously are sensitive to things that are happening in the environment. How do you know when you're having an experience versus your imagination or something just kind of taking hold of something and running wild?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that's why for many years I just tried to ignore it because I always felt, I knew since childhood that I had a big imagination. But I feel like my experiences far exceeded imagination sometimes because of how scary they were and how they were actually affecting my environment in real time. So when I started investigating, like that was always in the back of my mind, these thoughts, that I would have, like maybe it's just me creating this. Maybe maybe this isn't really happening. But the best thing I could have done, honestly, was start investigating, because there was so much validation behind it. Because I'm very much so like an observer. I won't talk about something a lot of times that I'm experiencing, just because I want to watch and listen and see if other people are having the same experiences. And time again, I was getting so much validation from strangers, clients, just things that would happen in the moment that validated my own personal feelings and experiences. And then I said to myself, okay, there's definitely something to this. And now I can start believing in myself more and start thinking less that, this is just my imagination, that there's something else actually there. And that was like that made a huge difference in my mind, because for many, many years, I just said to myself, okay, maybe I'm just crazy and I'm just going to let people not know about this part of me, and I'm just going to hide it really well. And oh my God, there's a person walking by, that person they don't even know. Okay, that could be real or not real. I have no idea. Like, I'd have all these thoughts running through my head all the time. And when I started investigating, locations, and particularly working with clients in their homes, I was like, this is very validating for me and very rewarding at the same time, because of that, these experiences are not just in my mind.
Now, how do those experiences manifest to you? Do you get them audio through hearing? Do you see them visually, like with your own eyes in front of you? Or are you more visualizing them in your mind? Is it a combination of the both?
Yeah, for me, it's always been a combination of everything. And I can never control that everything. I can never be like, okay, I'm just going to listen, or I'm just going to see. It's just kind of like whatever would be thrown my way. Because I grew up, hearing and seeing pretty regularly. And then as I got older, I noticed that I'd be emotionally affected by spaces and by people. And then there was a change about 2.5 years ago when I had my daughter.
Okay.
Which is interesting. And I've actually heard this from other women who have gotten pregnant as well. And while I was pregnant, honestly, everything went away. Like, I could not, even if I tried, nothing paranormal was happening to me. It was the strangest thing. And part of me in the beginning was like, oh, this is kind of relief. And then there was a part of me that was like missing it. I was like, I wonder if this is ever going to come back, or if it's just going to be like this forever. And then after I had her literally weeks before we started filming season 1 of Ghosts of Sheperdstown. And I remember, like, it was so strange to me, because it felt like I was relearning again all these aspects of myself, and it felt like it had changed a bit. I felt like suddenly I was channeling more, and it wasn't so, like, everything started becoming more personal to me. Which was different. So it's been interesting since I've had her to like get reused to all these experiences that happened to me.
That is interesting. I've heard other people say the same thing. I'm not very well versed in any of the research around the subject. I wonder if anyone out there is.
Yeah, I've actually I brought it up to Amy Allen, actually, the first time that I had met her. And she said something that was very interesting to me. And she said, when you think about it, it's because you are kind of being what you're supposed to be for your child. It'll change, your gifts will change because of what you need to be for her right now. And that actually made a lot of sense to me. And that's probably why it changed the way it did. And when I'm pregnant, obviously I should not be like feeling paranormal energies or like bringing things closer to me. I got to protect my child in that moment. So it's like subconsciously you put up walls, being protective, wanting to protect your child. And then afterwards it kind of morphed into like what she needs me to be for her growing up. So I loved that explanation. That made sense to me.
Hey, it makes sense. In my own religion, we have a concept called the Disir. Mm-hmm. And the idea of that is it's all the ancient mothers of your family line are the ones who most guide you and protect you and look over you and shield you from the dangerous things and then push you into the more challenging ones. And it's a really cool concept I like, and it makes sense along with the idea that moms are the ones that do most of that work anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when you were growing up, since this was all happening since you were a kid, was your family aware of what was going on?
I think to an extent, yes. My dad, he's so funny. He's very logical. He wants nothing to do with the paranormal. I give him tons of kudos because he made it through season 1 of Sheperdstown, but he couldn't bear to watch season 2, which I thought was hysterical. I think that he has had experiences, but he doesn't want to talk about them, you know. And then my mom is very open. She has told me that she has had experiences herself, and especially now that she's older, which has been interesting. But when I was younger, I think it was different. I think it's like, you know, because I had such a big imagination and my parents knew this, and if you ever ask my mom, like, what kind of kid I was growing up, the first thing that will come out of her mouth, and she probably might not say anything else, is, you were weird. You were just a weird kid. and that's the honest truth. I was just a very strange kid. I was always off in my own world. It was very hard to get my attention. I remember I would have, like, teachers sometimes, like, yelling at me, and then I'd come to, and, like, the whole class would be staring at me like, what is wrong with this girl? Because I'd just go unresponsive, but I was a constant daydreamer. And I think that when I was having paranormal experiences, if I were to say something, it would be written off as, like, oh, it's just her imagination again. But that being said, like, I was a huge sleepwalker, and it's interesting because a lot of my dream experiences were associated with sleepwalking, which I to this day find quite interesting. Anytime I had, like, a bad dream about the couple entities that would always come to me, I'd wake up in a different part of my house or in strange position. It was very, very odd. But yeah, I think my parents just, like, just took it as, like, okay, she's just having a nightmare again. It's just, like, you know, night terrors, I think, is what what people call them these days. But yeah, oftentimes I was just having a lot of nightmares in their mind.
Okay. I mean, are you still a sleepwalker?
No.
Okay. I wondered. My oldest daughter, she was a sleepwalker when she was a kid. It was the strangest thing. You just find her standing in front of a door.
Oh my God, it's so creepy. Like, I tell people now, I'm like, if my daughter starts sleepwalking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it, because it's just so. And I think that Hollywood has made it that even more dramatic.
Yeah.
But, like, it just, like, all of a sudden the music starts playing in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh my God, I can't have this happening right now. Is something else going to come out? I don't know.
And what you don't want to end up being is the sleepwalker who gets in your car and drives to Hardee's. And
oh my God, they have
food.
Those.
They
People
exist.
do that?
You know, I'm also
I'm
also a professional
imagine.
hypnotist. I've had people call me and ask me if I can help them with that very issue.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
I don't even know where to begin to help.
Actually, I have seen people that, like, wake up in the middle of the night unknowingly, and they'll, like, go down and eat food, or, like, they'll do strange things in their house. But I have never heard about someone getting in their car and driving somewhere. That's new.
Yeah, no, it happens.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, for your sensitive skills, I mean, you always refer to it as sensitive. I don't know if you call it anything else. Have you done anything to develop or strengthen them?
Yeah, actually, I for a while I would do meditation. I studied Kung Fu for many years, and Qigong actually became a really big part of what I do, and that's something that I just will do on a daily basis. That works for me. So
nice. Meditation is a vitally important skill for anyone out there who's not doing it, and especially in your line of work. Honestly, if you're not with a daily meditation practice, you wouldn't know exactly how to discern between the voices in your own mind and the voices that you're hearing from without, or any visions or anything. So it's an excellent practice to take up. We've also covered that you're an engineer, an electrical engineer. Is that correct?
yes.
Yeah. And most people out there probably don't know you have a company, I think it's called Ghostly Gadgets.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's still out there. It's where you tinker and create different things. What is Ghostly Gadgets, and how did it get started?
Yeah, so about, it was actually right after we filmed season 1 at Sheperdstown, which was in summer of 2015. And Nick Groff, who's on the show, he said, I have season 1 of Paranormal Lockdown that I'm going to start filming in the fall, and it would be really great if you made a piece of equipment or something for the show. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. Just let me know. And at the same time, I was so mad at myself because I was like, wow, I've been investigating paranormal for years and I have not once made a piece of paranormal equipment. I think part of that is I'm doing it so much at my 9-to-5 job with the government, and I didn't really have any free time to do with that because my free time was, investigating locations. But it was a perfect opportunity in my mind to start doing that. And, fall comes around and he gets back to me and he's like, do you still want to make something? I was like, absolutely. So I ended up making a couple pieces of equipment for his Franklin Castle episode in season 1. I made the E-box and sensing digital recorder. And those were the first prototypes made under Ghost Gadgets. And after that, I loved it. I just started tinkering and making all kinds of things whenever I had free time. And it was great. It just expanded from there. I started making stuff for season 2, Ghosts of Sheperdstown, which was awesome. And then since then, I've made a lot more equipment for Paranormal Lockdown, including their upcoming season that they just announced.
Very cool. What makes your equipment different?
I've been asked this question before. I think that sometimes what makes it different, most engineers are very logical. They, especially ones that I find in the paranormal community. And it's rare to find an engineer that's honestly open to these kind of possibilities. I think a lot of them, are very science driven, want the data, want something that has repeatability. And that's just not the case. Everyone knows that that's not the case with what we do.
No.
So I love when I find other engineers in the community, but I think what makes me probably a bit different is, there is that sensitive side to me. So, it's helped out a lot with my equipment because with my equipment, there's always different sensing aspects to it. And the sensors that I use incorporated in my technology and experimenting with, things that, as human beings, we might not necessarily be able to pick up on. And I like trying to mimic my experiences into the technology. So a lot of times anything that I build will be monitoring the environment, sensing the environment, and responding off of some sort of atmospheric change happening. And I think that's honestly what makes it a bit different. And I'm always playing with it, always modifying things. A lot of people have asked, when am I going to start selling it? Because I haven't sold a single piece of equipment. And I think that's really hard to tell people sometimes. I would love to say, tomorrow. But at the same time, I want it to be something that, I want there to be some transparency. A lot of people go around using equipment and no one really knows how it's made or what goes into making these devices that you're paying a bunch of money for. Mm-hmm. And, why are we necessarily saying that it's communicating with spirits? I mean, we could be communicating with, I don't know, anything else, just a stray, waves in the atmosphere. I mean, it could be really anything. But I think that when I get to that place, I want it to be good for people. I want people to understand the design, what went into it, what coding was involved, and give people the ability to change it themselves if they want to or build on it,
In a way, you've created an open source technology.
Exactly. Yeah. The most recent company I worked for was Spark Fun Electronics, and they were an open source company, and they rubbed off on me a lot, to say the least. And I just love that aspect of, what goes into it and you can change it, learn from it. I mean, I think that's too much in the paranormal community. Everything's mine, or I did it first, or this is what we got. And I just I would love sometimes for people to just come together and create things, or come together and help everyone understand, because we're all in the same place at the end of the day. None of us are better than the other. None of us really know what we're dealing with a lot of times. And we might not ever get that answer until we're not here anymore,
I agree. it would be nice if more people shared different ideas or were willing to even experiment some more. I like to bring more occult and pagan techniques into investigations.
Yeah.
I'll make offerings to the land spirit of the place before I walk in.
I love
and
that. That's
see
great.
if that
Yeah.
helps. I've suggested to people who had what they felt were really terrifying, uncomfortable experiences in their homes to first just start putting a bowl of heavy cream or full fat milk out by wherever place in your home the TV or the family gathers that's not the TV. Leave it out overnight once and say thank you to the spirit in the house and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times that just clears up the issue. You mentioned it, when you're investigating, it could be anything. One thing I think is vastly neglected in the realm of paranormal investigation are non-human entities.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from all our medieval lore that's been passed down to us includes everything from land spirits to fairies to who knows what else. And there's plenty out there that could be happening as we go along.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Now, with all that said, how much can we rely on technology in investigations?
I think it's really hard. I think, this is like a technology-based world. In a public place, you just look out amongst the crowd and you can see a bunch of people just, looking down on their phones. And I think sometimes in paranormal investigations, everyone falls victim to that at one point or another with the equipment that they use. So it makes it really hard. And I think that what I think is great is, somebody could be having an experience and be verbalizing that. And a piece of equipment that hasn't gone off all night at the same time could start going off, and it kind of validates it in a way. I always like to look for multiple things happening at once to say, this could be some sort of paranormal phenomena taking place. And I think those moments are exciting and cool, but it's really hard otherwise because the elements in buildings, on landscapes, the things that could be influencing, even ourselves, we don't even know to the extent the power of ourselves to be projecting out these experiences. So, it's just really, really hard. It's difficult to get to that place, but, I think it's exciting. It's also exciting for me because with experimentation and trying different things, maybe we can eventually get to a place where we have a piece of equipment that we can say, oh, this is really reliable.
That would be cool.
Some people, yeah, absolutely. I think some people have found that for themselves. I noticed that some people are really good at, photographing spirits. Some people are really good at communicating through their digital recorder. I think it's interesting because some people are just very in tune with the object that they're utilizing in comparison to other people. And I always thought that there was something to that as well. So I don't know, I always tell people whatever works for you. But at the same time, it's I don't think anything can trump the best tool, which is, yourself.
I agree. That would you have to be able to tune into that. And like we were talking about earlier, I think meditation is one of the best ways for people to really be able to discern between all the things going on in your head versus the environment and chasing those blinking red lights through abandoned buildings sometimes.
Yeah.
So someone out there who has sensitive skills similar to your own might not feel like they're welcome in the world of paranormal investigation because there's so much reliance on technology.
Yeah.
And may feel intimidated, like they shouldn't, or they're scared to go forward to get involved. What sort of advice could you give them to look for groups that are more accepting?
Yeah, I point people a lot of times to find local groups and to go through the interview process, or just go out with them if the group is accepting, to just experience what it's like to be with that team in particular. And sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't. But it really does help to gauge whether or not, I think, if it's going to work for you. and you get along with these people. I always feel like you should 100% trust the people you're investigating with too. And, you know, if people are doing things you're not comfortable with, not to partake in it, you know, you don't have to. A lot of people have appreciated that, not knowing that there were local groups even to them. My friend owns the website Paranormal, I think it's paranormalsocieties.com. Yeah, that sounds right. And it's a website where you can go to and you can find local groups based off the area that you're in. And it's amazing to me how many of those groups there actually are. But you can, a lot of times, a lot of groups have their own websites or social pages, and you can see what kind of investigations they do, their approach, you know, if it rings true to what you think you would like to do or be a part of, that always helps. There's a lot of just social groups online too that a lot of people get involved in and socialize, and maybe that's your first step, is just engaging in those online groups and forums and seeing, you know, like bouncing off ideas, experiences that you've been having. You can meet so many great people that way. For me, one of the things that I've loved to be a part of the past couple of years is the paranormal events and conventions all over the country. And I love meeting other teams, and I love meeting other people that are just into this stuff, because, you know, nobody that I grew up with was even doing stuff like this or even involved in things like that. So I never felt like I had somebody to talk to. And I think a lot of people, I get so many messages from people where all they want to do is tell their story, because they have so many loved ones, friends, coworkers that just do not believe them, or they feel like they don't have that outlet to just be like, hey, I feel like you would understand. Can I just tell you my story? And, I think that a lot of times that's like the first step for many people in opening up and being more comfortable with their gift if they have one, or being more comfortable with the idea of something paranormally happening. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I think I have some invisible sign on my forehead that says, "Tell me your ghost story." Because everywhere I go, it just, people get really comfortable real fast, and they think, "Oh, he's weird."
Yeah. It's great. Yeah. It's great too, because like I see such a difference even within the past 5 years in terms of the comfort level people have in telling their stories. I think, you know, we could probably credit some of that to the paranormal reality shows, and it just being out there on the public forum for people to be like, okay, it's not so weird if I say like I had this unusual experience, but like further beyond that, I feel like it was very difficult. Like I remember growing up and like just mentioning it to anybody, they look at you like, oh, you have like 10 heads, or you're just weird.
Yeah. Growing up with all my various interests, I mean, I got into paganism and the paranormal at the same time. I encountered a lot of bullying problems, vandalism to my property, and
oh wow!
And now I just don't see a lot of those things happening. It's interesting too, because you see reports in various newspapers once in a while that say that there's a decrease in adherence to religion among younger people, and there's still this very high percentage of people who would say they believe in a ghost. And that's the environment you find yourself in, that's accepting so much more of the paranormal, and they're willing to accept that they've had these various experiences and share them.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you say is the most important subject that needs to be addressed in the world of paranormal?
The most important subject that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, what's most important to your work?
I think there's a few different things. One of them that I think is kind of pressing in order for the community to move forward is the community.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of walls up between groups, between people. Like I was talking before, I think it makes it very hard to move forward when we are in like a niche group to begin with. And if there's so much animosity towards everyone's ideas and everyone thinking like we all know what it is that we're dealing with or what it is that we're experiencing. I think it makes it very difficult if people think that they have all the answers when we're just beginning. We're just like scratching the surface of answers. I feel like that's one of the biggest issues sometimes in terms of like advancing everything forward. And that goes hand in hand with like coming together to build equipment like we were talking about before, or just like coming together to spread ideas, viewpoints, cultures, even stuff that you do. Like I think everybody should hear a bit of everybody's perspective on it. And I think that would be, I feel like if that were to happen, we'd see such a leap in just what we're experiencing and maybe understanding it all a little better. And then aside from that, I talk about this a lot when I give lectures, and not being content with what we already have. Like not being like, okay, I have these 3 pieces of equipment that I've been using for the past 10 years, and this is all that I need. This is all that I need to detect if there's a spirit here. I think that there needs to be change. There needs to be a spread of ideas, openness to explore and experiment with things that may not make sense, but who knows? It could work in the moment for us. Mm-hmm. So those 2 things are things that I think that I would love to see focused on more.
Yeah, I have a friend who presented an interesting theory to me once. He seems to think that all these haunted locations are actually sitting silent most of the time. It takes the interaction of our consciousness with the building or the shape of the place or whatever happens to be in there for it all to turn on. I thought that was an interesting perspective.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's like, I guess it's a bit of philosophy in there too. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it still make a sound type of thing?
Right.
Yeah. I think that you can be amongst a group of people and you can have one person walk into that room and can change the energy completely of a space. And who's not to say that whatever we can't see in this dimension that we live in, it doesn't have the ability to do the same thing.
Sure.
And any one of us could just walk in right now and all of a sudden things are flying off the shelves. It could just be you.
Right.
There's some people that I know that people call like black holes. When they're around, nothing happens. And you're like, oh, don't want to be around you. Black hole.
Yeah, keep them off the set. Yeah. I mean, and it comes back to this idea, as an example, I could bring 10 people into a room and then present a deck of tarot cards and say, I'm going to use these cards to communicate with the spirit or spirits that are in the house. And people would have certain expectations based on what they know about the house, what they know about me, what they know about tarot, and so on. Now, I could take the same 10 people and the same deck of cards and say, these cards belong to the great beast, Aleister Crowley. I'm going to use his tarot cards that he's used in countless rituals to summon everything from angels to demons to speak to the spirits in this house. What do you think happens to the atmosphere in the room?
Oh, probably skyrockets.
Right?
People are like, oh God, just with a flip of a card, we can summon a demon.
Right. So there's a lot to be said for setting the stage for what's going to happen. Now, part of that is part of the experience maybe just going to happen in the viewer or the listener's mind, maybe. But I might also shift them out of their normal comfort zone and get right past that conscious objection in their mind and open them up to something that they wouldn't have experienced otherwise.
Yeah.
So that makes a huge difference. And I've noticed you gotten into, at least you were for a while, into table tipping.
Oh, yeah.
What's the idea behind that?
I love table tipping. It's so strange. I was going to be doing this film in the UK, this horror film, and ironically, a good friend of mine, Hans Hernkey, who is also he's an actor. He kept telling me, he's like, Elizabeth, you should really try table tipping. I've done it here, I've done it there. I've had all these crazy experiences. So I go online, I'm looking at table tipping and the Victorian methods, and I'm like, this is kind of interesting. I don't know if I really believe it. So then we start filming this movie, and there was one night that we had some spare time, and he was like, so you think you want to do it? And I'm like, okay, fine. We'll do the table tipping. I don't have any problem with just find a place and, grab two people. So we grabbed our wardrobe stylist, and we grabbed one of the other actors, and the four of us sat around in this dark building, and we had this round wooden table. And at first he's like, okay, we're going to all hold hands and, protect ourselves with whatever you used to normally protect yourself with. So we went through that process, and then he's like, okay, we'll do some energy passing. So we're squeezing our hands, around in a circle until we start pulsing in unison. And then he's like, okay, place the hands on the table. So I do that. And of course I'm super suspicious. I'm like, okay, I'm sure nothing's going to happen, right? So I'm standing there, and then the weirdest thing happened to me. I remember looking up out into the open space, and I could see someone walking towards the table. And mind you, I've never told people this, but this is from my experience what happened. And I what comes out of my mouth is immediately I'm like, oh my God, the table is going to move. And I just remember this huge shift in the table in an abnormal way. It was a shove. And I remember in that moment I was super skeptical. I looked down at the table, everyone's hands. I'm like, okay, who's touching it? But everyone just had two fingers on. And it's there's no way that one person could have shoved this with two fingers. I mean, maybe they could have, grandmas lift trucks and save babies, but this was a completely different. There's no adrenaline pumping here. We're all very calm. And it was honestly such a crazy experience in the most amazing way for me, because it opened my mind up to something that I probably was more closed off about. And it was an interesting experience for me as well, because whenever I've table tipped since then, it's a very different experience for me. It does feel more like a channeling experience, because I know when the spirits are coming. It's very strange. But it's interesting. I will say it's interesting.
It sounds interesting. Yeah.
That's my 2 cents. I mean, I've seen it do some crazy things too. I've had it lift off the floor a little bit. I've done it one-on-one with somebody before. And I remember at one point it was just my I did it with someone that was a complete skeptic. And I was like, oh, come on, it'll be fun. Just I just want to show you. And I just had, to 4 fingertips on lightly on the table, and the thing was moving a lot, and my eyes were closed, and I remember opening my eyes to see gauge their reaction, to be like, oh my God, did you feel that type of feeling? And when I opened my eyes, they were just they were sat back in their chair with their arms crossed, just the look on their face was priceless. And I was like, oh my God, were your hands not on it at all? And they just shook their head. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
That does sound fun.
Turned that skeptic pretty quickly. But yeah, I don't know. It depends. It's definitely interesting. Now everyone's going to be trying the table tip.
As they should. I think as they should. Yeah. It's always good to bring back some of those old Victorian spiritualist approaches, just and put them in a lit room and see how they work.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it could have just been me. It could have just been whatever. But it doesn't make it any less interesting.
Well, you found your calling. Elizabeth, the table tipping saint.
I guess no. Yeah. For $1, we could go table tipping. People would be like, what is happening? I stop all other things and I just have this cabin out in the woods with one table tipping table. You can come far and wide to see Elizabeth in her table tipping.
Come on, come all. The great table tipping Elizabeth Saint.
If you build it, they will come. Yeah. Oh my God, that would be hysterical.
That's funny. Well, What would you say? Let's see. What is one of your favorite failures that actually turned into something good?
And in life.
In life, sure. If you want to go in life, that's great. If you want to
Or
go with
just
paranormal
in
investigation, that's
paranormal.
great too. If you want to do both, I'll take it.
Oh, geez, this is a great question. Failures that oh God. I feel like, I think that gosh, I'm trying to think of like a very specific moment for you. But when I think about my life as a whole, I could say that there were so many moments that I would mark as failures, but what I've always found is there's a reason for it that I might not quite understand until later. And I've only been on Earth for 32 years, but I will say that all of those moments have changed my perspective, because now when something really bad happens, I think to myself, okay, it'll be okay. I've gotten through this before. And there's probably a reason why it happened. So let me just be patient, and it'll explain itself down the road. I've had things explain themselves like 10 years down the road as to why in that moment it happened. But yeah, I think that's the best I can give you right now, because I'm like, my brain's flowing trying to think of just one, but there's just been so many.
Oh, it happens. I mean, there are a lot of moments in life. I always think back to one of the scariest times in my life was during the recession. I was an advertising consultant for a newspaper, and
oh wow,
and that industry took the recession hard, real hard, and my career shriveled up real fast. And when I was burning through my savings and taking what little unemployment money I could get, looking for work, I jotted down on the list, if I want to go back to school and get another degree, what should it be? What direction should I go? What career do I want to do? Just confused. It was an absolute failure in my life to be in that place. But if I hadn't been there, I wouldn't have gone and become a hypnotist. It was the catalyst that made me decide that I wanted to go learn hypnosis the right way.
Right.
And if I hadn't done that, I've helped hundreds of people stop smoking, lose weight, stop suffering from chronic pain, improve sports performance, get rid of anxiety. And it all comes back to that time in my life when I was failing at everything I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Because the recession was so powerful in pushing me back.
Wow.
So oftentimes, there's all these moments in life that sometimes seem really hard. And the reason why I like to ask that question is everyone out there listening could be in a place where they need to know. It might feel dark and awful right now, but there's a good chance that it's leading to something better.
Oh, I 100% believe in that. Yep, I would definitely agree with that statement.
So investigating the paranormal puts you in close contact with death in ways that most people would never experience.
Mm-hmm.
How does that influence your daily life away from investigating?
I think, not to get too personal or too much into detail, but in my own life, I've had a lot of close experiences with death in general. So I think that once I started doing paranormal investigation, it wasn't so foreign to me. But I will say that one of the most amazing gifts of being exposed to death that I found in my life is not taking moments for granted. And it's really made me view things very differently. It is that whole thing, here today, gone tomorrow. But it's definitely helped in my life just not to take anything for granted, not to take moments with people for granted, making sure that everyone that's close to me knows, how much I love them or care about them, or, if even it's as simple as like, you've done a good job today. It just affected me in my life in that way, just being very appreciative of moments with people and experiences with strangers too.
Experiences with strangers.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've also found that, I can take the perfect example is this conversation, having a wonderful conversation with you. We don't know each other.
Right.
And here we are talking about, like subjects and topics that we're very passionate about. And it's great because I get the opportunity in this day and age to do something like that, where before, if we were living in different states, we would have never even heard of each other,
Right. That's
So
a very good
I'm
point.
very fortunate a lot of times to be living in a day and age where communications, amazing communications with a complete stranger is possible. And like that one conversation could completely change my viewpoint on something. And I love that. I love learning, and I love other people's perspectives.
Absolutely agreed. Now, the talking with strangers thing, that's why I wanted to ask. It's so cool. Just starting this podcast has allowed me to talk to some of the most amazing people I would have never had access to before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, never be afraid to reach out and say hi, people. You never know what people will respond with. What drives you to continue investigating the paranormal?
I think part of me is, from a young age, that search into the unknown. There's definitely that part of it. I grew up being very much so into the spirit world, dinosaurs, aliens, everything like that. Just things that are like quite bizarre on one hand. And then on the other side of it, it's really like helping people. I got like a lot of satisfaction out of, prior to Sheperdstown, when I would do residential investigations and helping people in their homes better understand what was happening. That was a lot of times really cool experience because, firsthand these people are in a place and situation where they want to be home and they want to be in a safe environment. And so many of your clients a lot of times are just like, they can't sleep, they don't feel comfortable in their own home. And it's like, I loved doing cases like that because I felt like we could really help somebody out.
Do you have a case that you recall as one of your favorite that sticks out?
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting. There was this investigation that had the previous resident had hung himself in the foyer of this home. And the couple currently were living there. Both of them were having all kinds of experiences, like electrical disturbances in the house. They found that they were getting in arguments sometimes that like didn't even make sense to them. And they were like, this is not us. Like before we moved into this house, we weren't behaving in this way. Like there wasn't really anything wrong. Like they felt like something was genuinely influencing them in their environment. They had heard that the man that hung himself, the wife was not very sympathetic to the situation. Apparently, this sounds so sad. Apparently, the fire department arrived on scene and he was still struggling after hanging himself. And she said something to the extent of, just let him die.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So it was interesting coming into this situation with this knowledge. I didn't really know what to expect. We were going to try our best, to figure it out. And we started, we set up all of our equipment and we started investigating. And I remember being down in the basement, and this has only happened a few times in my life, and I've investigated a lot of places, but the best way to describe it, it was like at one point everything was fine. We're like, I don't even know if we're really getting anything. And at one point it was like this train of negative energy just comes flooding into the room. Like it literally felt like you could feel like this pressure coming in. And all of a sudden the equipment started going off. And it was very, very bizarre in a negative way. Myself and another investigator, this was actually she was like a guest investigator. This was the first time we had investigated together. But we kind of clicked and meshed in that moment. And we thought to ourselves, let's go upstairs in the back room and just be by ourselves. I feel like we could probably communicate with whatever is here better for some reason. So we did just that. And I had the most amazing experience there. I had my audio going, and we had some equipment laid out, and I was listening in real time, and we started communicating with Bruce, who had hung himself in the house. And like, my EVPs from that day were just amazing. It was very evident to me that he felt like he didn't deserve to move on to a better place. He felt like he was latched into that house. And it was also very apparent that there was something else there, because it would come through on audio sometimes. So it was like that tragic event stirred up like some sort of negative phenomena. And then he was there feeling really sorry and guilty about everything that had happened. And up until that point, this was like in the beginning journey of me investigating, I had not ever done the process of, helping someone cross over. Like, it just wasn't something that I had done. I was a very spiritual person. But in that moment, I thought, I would very much so like to help you try if you're okay with that, Bruce. And he acknowledged that he was. So I went through the process of what I thought would help him. And when I listened to my audio later, because I wasn't hearing everything in the moment, it was very evident that he was being helped. There was somebody else that had come through on my audio saying, "It's okay, you can come with me." And then Bruce responding by saying, "Thank you so much." And after that point in time, when we were there, it's like everything stopped. There was no more communication. We weren't feeling anything. And I was like, okay, I hopefully that worked. I'm not sure. We went on the rest of the night investigating with the rest of the team. The best validation, though, was a couple weeks later when the couple reached back out to us and said, "I don't know what you guys did, but everything is gone. Everything's back to normal. We feel great in our place." And I just immediately knew, like, oh my God, like, Bruce is okay. Bruce is good. And it was such a great feeling, because I felt like, okay, we had done something for these people. And that's definitely, I will never forget Bruce. So definitely, that was a turning point, for me in terms of paranormal investigating, because it's like, for me, it was just like very gratifying to be able to do that for somebody.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm glad you could help Bruce. What do you do?
Thanks.
Yeah. What do you do when you personally feel overwhelmed?
I don't know. I'm a very grounded person. It takes a lot for me to get to the point where I'm extremely overwhelmed. I've had it happen before, but it's been more like, I know that it's like a foreign energy, if that makes sense. Like, it's something else making me feel overwhelmed. And a lot of times I found, like, if I just removed myself from a space temporarily, I could be like, more grounded out, so to speak. But yeah, it definitely takes a lot for me to get there, because I can usually separate myself pretty well.
What projects do you have going on right now?
A lot of exciting ones. I've been working a lot currently with season 3 of Paranormal Lockdown, but in the background doing the equipment and the big experiments for the show, and that's been really interesting and different from my perspective. And then Nick Groff and I just recently announced our live online streaming network, VidiSpace, and the first channel we're going to be releasing January 8th of 2018 will be The Haunted Space, which you can go to thehaunted.space, .space instead of .com. And you can go there, and you can subscribe right now to pretty much, subscribe to give ideas, and also 50% off of like the January subscription. But we really want to listen to the people and what people want to see. I think that's been the biggest missing piece sometimes with just reality television in the paranormal world, is like just what people want to see, and having something that's completely raw unedited, just like what you're seeing in the moment is what's happening, and giving people a platform that should have had a platform. And I know Nick, for many years has pitched, probably hundreds of shows to networks. And a lot of times they get turned down for whatever reason, whether it's funding or they don't necessarily like the talent or whatever they'd like go off and do the show, but don't include them. I don't know, whatever the case may be. We really wanted to have a platform that was just our own, where we can have people that we truly believe in, that are out there that people don't know about, that are just doing really interesting things. And I just love giving a space for these kind of people to be known.
That's awesome. Yeah. First, I like the very clever approach, haunted.space. I didn't even know .space was available.
Yeah. Yep.
And,
all of that's kind of our catch. When we start releasing other networks and other genres, the .space extension is kind of where we're birthing everything.
I like it. Yeah. All right. And we're coming now to the end of the show, and I want to thank you again for being here, Elizabeth. It was a lot of fun to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Yeah. Do you have anything we haven't covered or any parting thoughts you'd like to share with people?
No, I just want to honestly thank everybody that has listened to this. And I don't know. I look forward to talking to you again.
Oh, good. Me too. Where can people find you?
You can look me up, or I don't know. You can go to elizabethsaint.com, or if you're on Facebook, you can find me that way. I try to answer to the best of my ability people that message me. I leave all my social media chats open so people can do that. Yeah. So you could just send me a message. Don't be too harsh. I am a human being.
That's how this got started.
Crazy. Yeah, exactly. That's how this started. But yeah, I'm pretty open. So
yeah, you are a remarkably open and kind and humble person for someone that you see people on TV, and people don't expect that a lot. And you have done a lot to break the mold. So kudos to you for being good people.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot.
You're welcome. And for everybody out there who's been listening, thank you again for being here. Stay weird out there, my friends. Okay, gang, that's a wrap on this episode of Weird Web Radio. Once again, thank you all for listening. Now, it's time for you to go join the official Weird Web Radio membership. Go to patreon.com/weirdwebradio and you can choose your rewards and become a member today. Enjoy all the exclusive benefits, inside information, and plenty of bonus audio with each guest. Now, you can find the show at weirdwebradio.com and weirdwebradio.libsyn.com. The show is listed on Facebook and Twitter as Weird Web Radio, and you can find me on Instagram as just Lonnie_Scott. Please remember to rate and comment and share the shows that you like, and it helps others to find us in all the search results. Shoot me an email if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you know someone that would be a great guest in upcoming episodes. You can send that to weirdwebradio@gmail.com. Seek the mysteries and delights in life, my friends. As always, stay weird out there.